thought wasn't appropriate for the teenage audience. We showed you the dance yesterday and asked you to vote on whether you thought Clark should have been suspended. Last night, the City Council of Patterson voted in favor of recommending Clark be bounced permanently. Well, you thought quite differently about that. We received tens of thousands of calls, and the results were definitely in Joe's corner. 37% of you felt that Joe Clark should have been suspended, while a larger group, much larger, 63% felt that Joe Clark was treated unfairly. Now stick around for your official introduction to the video girlfriend.
Patterson's Joe Clark may be headed for more trouble. Last night, several members of the Board of Ed asked that Clark be fired as principal of Patterson's Eastside High. No action was taken on the firing at last night's meeting, but the question could come up again after the school year. Clark is currently completing a one-week suspension. That is the result of a controversial show put on while Clark was out of town.
And there's more news ahead on Channel 9. They are going...
Joe Clark says that when school bells ring next September, he's going to be staying home. Joe Clark, the controversial principal of Eastside High School in Patterson, New Jersey, made that announcement less than an hour ago. He's asking for a leave of absence from his job. Joe Clark says that will leave him freer to promote his new book, which is called Laying Down the Law, freer also to speak out about education and its connection with discipline. Patty?
Wow, what a game tonight. I must say it stopped.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Joe Clark's manager says the controversial principal is calling it quits. After this term, he'll take a sabbatical. His manager told Fox News Clark wants to be an agent of change for our nation's cities. He says that might mean a job in the Bush administration under drug czar William Bennett. But Clark will be back at school on Monday after a 5-day suspension over a sexy high school performance that went on while he was not at the school.
Well, still ahead, the First Family is waiting for the first
demonstrators, and we'll report to you from them. Let's go to Larry Hoff, who's over in Patterson with the Joe Clark story.
And the halls are quiet right now, Dick and everybody out there. Joe Clark has returned to class after a 5-day suspension, which he served last week. And he greeted the media this morning out on the front steps of Eastside High School here in Patterson. A big media conference. A lot of people gathered. A crew even came in from Philadelphia this morning to hear Joe's words. And his words were significant. Joe announced that he is going to be taking a sabbatical starting in September of next year. That means that he'll be out of Eastside High School probably in June, and he's going to be moving on to other things for the time being. Whether he returns to Eastside High School remains to be seen.
My soul is tired from the vicissitudes of a system that has no cognizance of what is necessary if we are to save our cities and our schools. I want to state, for the record, I can no longer be part of a system that exploits youth. We are turning black and Hispanic youth and the poor whites who couldn't escape. We are turning them out into a system where they are unable to compete in a competitive society. This principal is not quitting. This principal would never quit. My students have come to me incessantly, and they have implored me. They beseech me, Mr. Clark, please don't quit. You've taught us when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to sigh but you have to cry, if care is pushing you down a bit, rest if you may, but don't you quit. And I assured them that I'm not quitting.
Well, he's saying that he's going to rest up to fight another day, and a fight is brewing. It was last week that the Patterson City Council voted that Joe Clark should be fired. Now, the Patterson City Council has no legal basis to fire the man here. That must come from the school board, and that action was not taken. As for the future for Joe Clark, he's talking about writing a book during his sabbatical. It is a paid sabbatical for 6 months. But whether he does come back, that is still up in the air. He was talking this morning that he is going to be talking with the Bush administration about a possible position in the Board of Education or the Department of Education under Mr. Bennett there. And he had some words for the people on the council, calling them little rats and imps and many other little descriptive phrases. He is keeping things very lively out here, Jim. It is always entertaining to come out and hear from Joe Clark.
All right, Larry, thank you very much. Things may be low, but Joe's going to go. Time now, 7:08.
just arriving here at the school. We're standing outside live. We've been here since 6 o'clock this morning when Joe Clark walked up just in front of these steps here at the high school, Eastside High School here, and announced that he was going to take a sabbatical starting in September of next year. He said he is on a paid 6-month sabbatical, but he did not specify whether he was going to actually return to his principalship here at Eastside High School. He's talking about writing a book and possibly taking a position in the Bush administration. And I have with me right now Lisa Evans, who is the school board president. Lisa, he was talking about his tired soul, that it was time for him to step back in his fight. And he said it was not because of the school board or the city council that he was stepping down for the time being or taking that sabbatical, that it was quality education that he was fighting for, and that it was very tiring to fight that battle to improve education here at an inner city school. First of all, your reaction to Joe Clark.
I think if Mr. Clark believes it's time for him to move on, I wish him luck. However, it's extremely hard in the urban city to have quality education. That seems not to be the focus. There's so many internal problems that we have to face in urban ed. Most of these students need individual care, and unfortunately we're so overcrowded and we're overwhelmed, we cannot afford to provide individual care for the students.
Will Eastside miss Joe Clark, though?
Eastside will miss Joe Clark. However, Eastside will go on. Mr. Clark is not the total answer to education in Patterson. Eastside will continue, and hopefully that we will come up with a more effective plan to concentrate on the academic skills, improving the academic skills of the students here in Eastside.
Well, Lisa, some people were saying that Joe Clark was out of control. Did you believe that?
No, I think Mr. Clark is emotionally and physically exhausted. It's been a rough year for him with all the media attention, with everything that has been happening. You have a lot of people that has chosen to fan their own political career on the backs of Joe Clark. And how long can you keep this up? He has to be exhausted. And I think it's time. He needs to rest. And he definitely needs to get away from all of this.
Well, real quickly here, would you like Joe Clark to come back after a sabbatical?
If that's what he wished, I would most heartily welcome him back.
Okay, plug in here because we have a city councilman from Patterson joining Jim Ryan in the studio. And Jim, when Joe Clark took the podium, the makeshift podium this morning, he did not have kind words for the Patterson City Council.
All right, I think we're going to take a look at that tape right now, Larry. So let's give a gander.
I would like to, however, make it very, very specific and very, very emphatic that in no way am I leaving because of a bunch of impish, insincere, diabolical council member individuals. I'm not quite sure all of them are the lemmings. You know what lemmings are, I indicated before, the little short-tailed rats who very often placidly go into the river for ultimate oblivion. I'm not quite sure all of them are about that, but there are two that I must take this opportunity to assail unmercifully, for they deserve the diatribe they are about to get. Number one, there's this little creep called Hayden. I think he's the president of the council. He's nothing but a little imbecilic imp who should be ashamed of himself. And there's the other guy, the little black mutt Rowe, who walks around yapping and yapping as though he's some puritanical saint. He should be ashamed of himself.
Well, Joe Clark, not mincing words there. Ken Hayden is with us, councilman at large from Patterson. Some very strong language there, Mr. Hayden. You want to respond?
Well, really, it's not my... I've been in public life for quite a few years, and I've never gotten down to that level of sarcasm or can you top this? And if you want me to respond to that, I will, but I'd rather go on the resolution and the reasons why I believe that this man should be removed.
Go ahead.
The resolution that I introduced was one that stated that Joe Clark has failed in the education of our students at Eastside High School. One of the tenets of education, the basic premise is to educate and have the students understand values. The value system, he's failed. And also character development, he's failed. When you have an educator, and I put that in quotes, that advocates tearing the school down stone by stone, that would be tantamount to an Omar Gaddafi statement, and I put him in that same category as a terrorist.
Well, here is a guy who, obviously, he's flamboyant, obviously he's a maverick, obviously he marches to a different drummer. But here is a guy who has rallied the children at Eastside High School, has gained national attention for academic success in an area where you wouldn't expect that success to be readily forthcoming.
No, absolutely. You said the word. You said the magic word. We didn't expect it, and we certainly didn't get it. Joe Clark, the scores of Eastside High School are the lowest. They're lower than Jersey City test scores, and Jersey City is now under state control. His dropout rate is 45%. His high school proficiency has made no significant advancement. His harassments of the teachers and intimidation of students and parents alike, this is all part of a scheme to put the Joe Clark where he wants to be. He achieved his objective, exploitation and getting on the front page through the media and leading to a Hollywood career.
We have a question now, excuse me, from Larry Hoff and his guest out at Eastside High right now. Larry?
Well, Jim, Joe responded to that this morning, saying that he received kids who were coming into this high school who were reading at a first and second grade level coming into high school, and he said, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to get those high test scores? You've been hearing Mr. Hayden, Lisa. Do you agree with that?
I think, first of all, Mr. Hayden needs to seriously take a look at what is going on. Like most political people in urban ed, we have some serious problems here. And we have children that are students that are coming into the school that are not up to a 9th grade level. And that's extremely hard. They need individual attention. Unfortunately for Patterson Board of Ed, we cannot afford to hire after-school tutors. We cannot afford to give the students the individual attention that they need. However, Mr. Hayden is a councilman at large. He sits on the city council. If they would be willing to provide the financial funds that we need to work with these students and to take care of their and to deal with the problems coming from the homes of drugs and dealing with the emotional problem that a lot of these students have at Eastside High School, we would be more than willing to sit down and if he would also be willing to provide the documentation of what's in his resolution so that we can seriously, if he is serious about education in Patterson, someone, elected paid official, should take a look at what is happening in urban ed and stop taking a look at Joe Clark. Joe Clark is not the answer.
That's precisely what I've done, Jim. I haven't looked at Joe Clark. And the irony of it, Joe Clark and I are classmates. I got a phone call that he was in my graduating class in 1960. Of course, I never heard of him, but I'll take that responsibility of being in the same classroom with him. But getting back to Miss Elise Evans, the president of the Board of Education, I don't believe there's a person on that city council, and speaking as a former educator myself, that knows the value of providing the dollars. But the dollars are not going to where they should be going. They're going to sources that are just taking care of Joe Clark, the cult personality of Joe Clark. He's gone to that school. We didn't hire him to run the train on time. We hired him to establish a very good overall educational facilities.
All right,
that was not done.
All right, thank you, Ken Hayden, Councilman at Large from Patterson, for joining us this morning. We'll have more on this controversy later on in the broadcast. But right now, let's check in with John Buchan. He's down
on this Monday morning. Good day, New York.
And Larry Hoff live outside of Eastside High School here in Patterson, New Jersey, where this morning Principal Joe Clark announced that he is leaving the school. We're going to be talking with students to find out what they think about this surprise announcement. Good day, New York.
Channel 5.
Well, the students are coming into class. It will be homeroom time in about 20 minutes. Eastside High School, the scene this morning here in Patterson. Principal Joe Clark announced right here on the doorsteps that he will be taking a sabbatical starting in September. So when the school year ends in June, Joe Clark will not be around this area. It was last Monday that a number of students marched from the high school here over to the Board of Education. Why did you guys do that?
Thursday, because of the Hispanic, we need some more Hispanic teachers, and I think the Spanish people, you know, they need more teachers to be here to help them.
You guys, what do you think about Joe Clark resigning?